And then I figured anything we don't love, we can always edit out as well.
Yeah, yeah. And if something comes up that I have opinionated opinions on, I'll bite my tongue a little bit.
Believe me, man, this podcast has been a huge test for me, especially over the last 2 years, to just like keep it to myself because obviously we want to
Yep,
appeal to all listeners.
right. That part.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't think it's as easy for either one of us to keep our mouths shut about these things.
Nope, definitely not.
Oh. Yeah, wait, what's that phone number back there? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All right. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I am so excited to have Kortney Olson on my show today. We've been talking for a while. I first heard about her from a mutual connection we have with Ryan Stewman, and he was saying, "You got to check this girl out. She gets paid like $500 to just work out with dudes." And I was like, wait, what? I want to find out about that. And I went to your page and I was so stoked because unbeknownst to me, I didn't even realize this. You're also huge in recovery. So as when I reached out to you, I was like, we are like a match made in heaven. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I love chatting, so this is good.
Awesome. So I was just reading through all of your credentials. Like, you are amazing in every possible way, physically, mentally, socially. Like, you're really nailing it in every realm, it seems like.
Thank you. It's funny because, it's, I don't know. I don't know if it's a generational thing or what, but, taking compliments is still feels very funny. It's like, oh, thanks. You grit your teeth and smile. And then in the back of your mind, you can hear my mom saying, don't be conceited and stuck up or, so I'm like, thanks.
Yep.
But yeah, learning to lean into that is challenging, but at the same time, much appreciated. So thank
Yeah.
you. I am awesome.
You are
I
awesome.
said
And
it.
I totally get it. I'm the same way. I start to feel so awkward and I'm like, how am I supposed
Yeah,
to like acknowledge that or respond to that? Like, thanks.
yeah,
It's like
100%.
it is hard.
Yep. Yep. And when we have the never enough dis-ease, it's always like, I mean, yeah, I've done some cool stuff, but there's so much more to do or that I haven't done, or, I rarely stop and sit in my accomplishments. It's like you tick something off a list and you're like, next, right? It's just this never ending next. But I guess that's the whole thing in recovery, right? It's like peeling of the onion, and at least we're not hammered or using. It's like, all right, cool. Just know that it'll always just be a journey and keep getting easier for the most part.
Yeah, well, and I think you, like me, we just constantly looking towards that next thing. There's never a complacency. And for me, not as much physically, although I still am pushing myself further. I mean, I'm in the best shape of my life at this point. But even with work, like we're all the same. Like you said, generationally, it's like, oh, we just hit that big milestone. Okay, cool. What do we got to do next? Like there is hardly any celebration of the wins along the way because we're always looking at what I have to do next, what's next. Like there is no like stop and really just enjoy that because there's always something else to do.
I know. And it's funny because I guess that's with everything in life. There's pros and cons. There's a balance, but on the one hand, it's great because, we're never really being satisfied. It's like, you're driven and we get a lot of stuff done and we make change happen and we're change makers. But then at the same time, the downside being like, yeah, we lack satisfaction and, that ability to slow down. And so I guess, as we say, it always comes with a grain of salt, but whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think
We're
it works
above
for both of
ground.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll just keep doing it.
That part.
Yeah. So obviously, I have a recovery podcast. So I would love to find out like your journey about how you ended up on the wrong side of the tracks, or in addiction, like we did, and then what your recovery and how that happened and what played into that. Like, were you physically fit and doing all this stuff during your addiction, or did all this come after you got sober?
That's a great question. I starting out, so what the driving force behind it, the superficial aspect of it was wanting to look like Kate Moss. You know, and there's probably a ton of listeners out here who are like, who's Kate Moss? Well, in the 90s growing up, you know, Kate Moss was like the supermodel, right? This was before social media, of course. And her legs are like the size of my forearm.
Yeah,
so looking
like
like her,
toothpicks.
yeah, was never going to be achievable. But she was the first person that I saw as a young adult, not a young adult, I was a child at 7, acting like an adult, and that being because I was raised by an alcoholic, and, you know, not realizing the implications that have on us as children, because we're often the adult in the situation, you know, and how that plays out in our adult life. But as I first started using, that was the superficial reason, was because of body image.
Yep.
Right? I thought that all of my using came down to wanting to look like Kate Moss. But of course, after staying clean and sober for some time and doing the work, we realized that it's much deeper than that, you know, and there's always that superficial layer where we think is what's causing it. But when you get down to the root of it all, it's like, oh, okay, it's because I was raised by an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And, you know, this, whether addiction and alcoholism is a learned behavior or genetic or both, you know, the science is still out on that. But knowing what I know now, it's like, I don't really care that much to figure it out. I'm happy to stay in the solution and just not make the same mistake. So that was originally why I thought I had gotten started. So I started out smoking methamphetamines, and I was the associate student body president my senior year of high school. I was in a Christian rock band. I was at a private Catholic high school. I was the captain of the cheerleading team, started the first girls golf team, was in the Eureka City Youth Council. Like, I mean, I was the 4.0 GPA epitome of a perfect kid, right? And that's why I got away with it for so long, because everyone was like, not Kortney K, she's an angel. You know, and I was truly such a good kid. But again, that desperation to be thin overrode everything that I knew in terms of common knowledge, because I knew better. You know, I went to Stupid Dare, and I heard Nancy Reagan just say no.
That works so well for all of us.
Right, clearly. So down the track, you know, and unfortunately, there was all these events that happened too, right? So at the end of my senior year, one of my teachers caught on, and he said, right, do you want to see a drug counselor, or do you want us to tell your parents? And clearly I was like, I'll see a drug counselor, hello. And the drug counselor was like, why'd you do it? And I said, because I wanted to lose weight. And he said, oh, I have the perfect solution. I know this boxing trainer who is a former Golden Gloves champion and ex-junkie, and he's married to a nun. Like, what could possibly go wrong? Right? And so
that checks a lot of really weird boxes, but okay.
Yeah, it really does. And of course, I went to his class, and I was clean for 3 days, and he took a massive liking to me. And, you know, at the time he was 72 and I was 17, and he said he was going to make me his last prize fighter before he retired, and invited me over to his house to watch some tapes, because of course this was when VHS was still around. And I went over there, and sure enough, you know, I wasn't capable at that point of listening to red flags or even really able to process much. Because I mean, I had 3 days clean, and this man basically drugged and raped me. And I woke up, and just a horrific experience from that. And I got out of there, and he never contacted me. So in my little 17-year-old mind, I had, you know, worked out that it was my fault, and I had led him on. I must have, you know, been flirting with him. And of course, at the time I was as well. I was always over flirtatious and, you know, crossing boundaries, but obviously that doesn't warrant what happened. But that's, and I think that happens to a lot of us, you know, as we take stuff like that and we turn it into our fault, and we let that be our victim story for the next several years. At least that was my experience.
Yep.
And I went off to college, and, you know, I didn't realize and wasn't taught that replacing one with another. So I just picked up drinking. And so I walked straight into my mom's shoes and became a full-blown alcoholic at the age of 18, and spent that and was that way for the next several years. So basically the next 9 years. And I dipped in and out. You know, I went to rehab when I was 21, because I knew this was after I got my first DUI, and my best friend had wrecked my car a year prior. So that was those were 2 Hondas. In total, I've wrecked 5, including a motorcycle, so the fact that I know Honda is a great car. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you should veer away from a Honda.
Yeah, I know. I
It must be the Honda's fault.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's everybody's fault but my own. Yeah.